In this video, I'm going to look at TTArtisan 100mm 2.8 Bubble Bokeh. Meyer-Optik Görlitz produced a series of triplet lenses called Trioplan based on the Cook Triplet design from 1893 in different focal lengths after World War II. One of these lenses was the 100mm f2.8 Trioplan, produced from 1956 to sometime at the end of 70s or beginning of 80s, when Meyer-Optik Görlitz was merged with Pentacon in the then East Germany. They stopped producing this lens because Pentacon had better 100mm lenses. It had okay center sharpness though, and could produce a so-called soap bubble bokeh in certain situations. This was considered an optical defect then, which is what it is. With the advent of digital cameras, it became very popular though, and the prices went up in the used market, so popular that the company decided, for the first time in history, to revive the lens by a Kickstarter campaign in 2015. It was a very successful campaign. The produced lenses were sold out quickly for about €1,000 each. In 2023, TTArtisan came up with a lens very similar to it, both in look and optical design. Let's have a closer look at it. You can see this review as a text-based blog post on our blog site. I leave the link in the description below. Most of the sample images in this review and many more can be found in high resolution on another website. I leave the link to that website also in the description below. I would like to thank TTArtisan for providing this lens for review and testing purposes. Handling and build quality. This is a completely manual lens. Focus and aperture can only be set manually. No stabilization and no EXIF data or any other info to the camera. This lens is quite small for being a 100mm, built completely of metal with engraved scale markings filled with paint for aperture values, distance in meter and feet, depth of field scale, and the lens and manufacturer's name. Quite stylish and nice actually. It comes both in M42 screw mount and Leica M mount. So for using it on modern cameras, you need an adapter from M42 or Leica M mount to your camera's mount. The aperture ring has click stops at variable distance between each stop. As you go from wide open to closed aperture, the distance between stops gets smaller. Between 2.8 and 11, there are click stops between each pair of full stops, but from f11 to 22, there are no intermediate half stops. The aperture ring clicks smoothly and distinctly, but the focusing ring has just okay resistance. Not very stiff, but not very smooth either. It has a 49mm filter thread, and the lens cap, which is of metal, unlike most other lens caps, screws in the filter thread. No lens hood is provided. Optical features. Just by looking at the manufacturer's provided MTF chart, the good things that you can read is that the lens has very good correction of astigmatism and lateral aberrations in the center and out to the midframe, excellent contrast and somewhat good sharpness at f8. There is no field curvature to expect either at any aperture. Another good thing is the sharpness and contrast at whatever level they are don't fall at all to about the midframe and start to deteriorate just moderately from midframe to the corners. But you should not expect any good sharpness or excellent contrast at f2.8. Not a disaster either, possibly they are usable in real life. There is also an indication that you can get good bubble bokeh rings in the corners. All these are just indications for what could be expected with a pinch of salt and nothing more. So let's see how it performs in real life. Sharpness at infinity. For the infinity sharpness test, we look at three areas of the image: center, midframe and corner. Wide open at f2.8, center sharpness is just okay. It's usable, but may need some boost in post-processing. Contrast is low. Midframe is close to center, but not as good. It's usable though. The corner is just bad. At f4, center is completely okay, and mid-frame is usable with boost in post. Corners are still bad. f5.6, center is now at good level. A little improvement in mid-frame, corners look better but not usable yet. At f8, both center and mid-frame are very good. Corners still too soft. At f11, center and mid-frame are still good, and at last the corners reach an acceptable level. At f16, sharpness and contrast decrease in the center a little, but still at a good level. Mid-frame and corner are good. f22, sharpness and contrast decrease a little more across the whole frame. Sharpness at portrait distance. For the portrait distance sharpness, we look at the 3 points of interest for portraits in the frame: the center, the inner periphery, and the outer periphery circle. Wide open at f2.8, the sharpness in the center and the inner center periphery is completely okay, but contrast is low. The outer periphery has the same sharpness but lower contrast. Each half stop of smaller aperture gives clearly visible improvements to both sharpness and contrast. As we could see in the MTF chart, there is not much decrease in sharpness and contrast from the center to the mid-frame. And we can see it here too, that sharpness and contrast does not get any worse from center to the inner circle periphery point, which is within the mid-frame circle. But there is some decrease in both contrast and sharpness at the outer periphery circle, which is farther away from the mid-frame. At about the minimum focusing distance, the lens is quite soft with low contrast at f2.8, but usable. At f4, the sharpness and contrast get a boost to good levels. The lens seems to reach its max performance at f5.6 and is still very good at f8. At f11, the diffraction effect creeps in and degrades the sharpness a little. The sharpness gets another hit at f16. At f22, the sharpness falls abruptly to very soft. This is better than I expected. Lens distortion. TTArtisan 102.8 has a negligible amount of pincushion distortion. Normally there is no need to correct this. This is very good. Also, as the lens's applications do not require perfect distortion correction, this can just be ignored in almost all use cases of this lens. Vignetting. The lens shows very low vignetting. At f2.8, there is only 2/3 of a stop vignetting, which improves to 1/3 of a stop at f4. Further closing of the aperture does not make much difference. This is very good indeed. All this was for the M42 mount. The M mount version shows a stronger vignetting, especially stopped down. I didn't have a copy of the M mount version to test myself, but you can look at TTArtisan's own test shots here. Flare resistance. The lens has, as expected, some problems with flares. It is a very old design and there is no mention of any advanced coating and thereof the lack of flare resistance. However, this has been part of the attraction of this lens for some. You need to be a little bit cautious with the placement of the sun in or near the image frame unless you want to use the flare creatively. Chromatic aberrations. There is not much sagittal chromatic aberration visible in the images. Good performance here, but you can clearly see the longitudinal chromatic aberration as green and purple fringing at f2.8 that reduces by stopping down. At f5.6 it's cleared up. The lens shows positively surprising low to no focus shift to worry about, so this is good. Comma. Testing comma is actually irrelevant for this lens, but to be consistent and cover this aspect too, here it is. There is some comma at f2.8, though not so bad. It improves quickly and a lot by stopping down and is almost gone by f5.6. Sun stars. In this category, I'm a little impressed actually, not because this lens creates sun stars that can compete with the best sun stars created by some other lenses, but because it can create any sun stars at all. I mean, 13 rounded aperture blades are hardly to be expected to be able to create any sun stars worth mentioning, but as a matter of fact, this lens manages to do it. It can create sun stars at smaller apertures, 26-pointed versions of them to be more precise. Quite unique, or at least very rare actually. Maybe not very well defined, but nice. Focus breathing. Yes, the lens suffers from severe focus breathing. Bokeh. Well, this must be the main, if not the only, feature of real interest for anybody who is watching this video or buys this lens. This lens can indeed create quite interesting bokeh in the right conditions, the soap bubble bokeh. The lens can certainly create one of the best soap bubble bokehs I have ever seen. If you manage to find those right conditions though, it can even become too much in certain conditions, but that's a matter of personal taste. Even if the conditions are not right, the 13 rounded aperture blades are capable of rendering very soft and pleasant traditional bokeh, even stopped down a little. Another good feature with the bokeh is that the lens vignetting is not prominent at all, so the bokeh balls look equally beautiful, more or less circular, without any truncating all over the frame. Not everybody likes this kind of soap bubble bokeh though, but if you do, it certainly can deliver it. Now to the conclusion and sample images. The good things are the bokeh, the price, the size, and the vignetting control. Things that are not bad, but not very good either, are the center sharpness, aberrations, distortion, and sun stars. Things with room for improvement are corner sharpness, across the frame sharpness, and no electronic contacts for EXIF data. This is a special purpose lens and not a lens for everyday photography. A lens with an optical construction from over 100 years ago, used over 65 years ago in a lens with the same focal length, same max aperture, and even a look that resembles a lot that old lens. It is obvious that TTArtisan wanted to create a new Trioplan, which has been so popular for its soap bubble bokeh, and TTArtisan created this lens mainly to create or mimic that bokeh effect, and they have succeeded. With modern manufacturing technology, they have created a lens with a very similar effect to, if not better than, the original one. It can not only create the bubble bokeh effect, but also the traditional dreamy, soft, glowy bokeh for portraits or other creative works, and that with quite good sharpness in the frame center, where it does matter for this lens's applications. Of course, Meyer-Optik Görlitz has also done it, and you can buy a new Trioplan 100mm f2.8 made by them, but that one costs around €1,000 new, while the TTArtisan 102.8 costs only $155 in their own online store, which reflects the actual value of a very simple 3-glass element lens. You can also buy the original Trioplan on eBay, but it will not cost less, and you have no warranty either. Besides, you buy a 65-year-old lens with glass that was ground with that time's machines and technology. All in all, if you like this effect, irrespective of the price, I highly recommend this lens. The low and fair price for a new lens is a welcome bonus. If you are interested in buying this lens, you can support our efforts by using the links in the description. It won't cost you a penny and it won't affect the price, but it helps us a little. As mentioned earlier, this review is also available in written format on our blog, where you can find detailed test charts on sharpness and other characteristics. I have also listed a few alternatives at the end of the article for those interested. A link to the blog post is included in the description below. Huge thanks for watching. Any comments are most welcome. If you liked this video, give it the thumbs up, and for more content like this, please subscribe if you haven't done so yet. Until the next video, have a fantastic time everyone.